The soft chime of a new message broke the tranquil silence of Nathan Carter's office. He glanced up from his laptop, eyebrows furrowing as his attention shifted to the sleek smartphone resting on his oak desk. It was nearly midnight, and his days were packed with meetings and strategies to keep Carter Enterprises ahead of the competition. Disruptions at this hour were rare, especially from personal contacts. Unlocking his phone, Nathan saw the notification from an unsaved number. "Hey, I'm so sorry to bother you. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate, but I need help. I can't afford baby formula this week. Please, if you can, lend me $40. I'll pay you back as soon as I can." Nathan stared at the message. For a moment, the words didn't make sense. Baby formula? His mind reeled, trying to connect the dots. Then he noticed the last person who had used this number. Emily. He exhaled slowly, his pulse quickening. Emily, his ex-wife. He hadn't heard from her in nearly a year, not since she'd disappeared from his life without explanation. She'd left when everything between them had seemed perfect. He'd had his career on track, and she'd been his anchor in a storm of corporate chaos. Her sudden departure had left him bitter and angry. He'd forced himself to bury the hurt under layers of work and success. But now she was asking him for help. Desperate enough to text me, he thought, his chest tightening. Nathan's first instinct was disbelief. Why would she ask me for money? She'd been fiercely independent, never one to lean on anyone, least of all him. Yet the message sounded genuine, and the mention of a baby left him even more unsettled. He hesitated, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. Finally, he typed a response. "Emily, I'm not sure what this is about, but you have my attention. Let's talk." On the other side of town, Emily stared at her phone, horror-struck. The message she'd sent wasn't in her best friend Carla's inbox, it was sitting in Nathan's. Her breath hitched, her stomach sinking as she realized her mistake. "No, no, no," she muttered, clutching the phone tightly. Her hands shook as she tried to compose herself. It had been nearly a year since she'd last spoken to Nathan. She'd done everything in her power to keep her life, and her son, hidden from him. Walking away had been the hardest decision she'd ever made, but she'd convinced herself it was for the best. Nathan had been too consumed by his work to notice the changes in her, and when she'd discovered she was pregnant, fear had driven her to leave without saying a word. Now her carefully constructed wall was crumbling because of one careless text. Emily glanced at the crib in the corner of the small apartment. Liam, her 8-month-old son, was sound asleep, his tiny chest rising and falling in rhythm. His presence was her source of strength, even in moments like these. But what would Nathan think? Would he laugh? Ignore her? Worse, would he respond with cold indifference? Her phone buzzed. Heart pounding, Emily read the message. "Emily, I'm not sure what this is about, but you have my attention. Let's talk." She sank onto the couch, her mind racing. Should she reply? Should she explain herself, or just delete his number and pretend this never happened? Her gaze returned to Liam, and the weight of her situation settled on her. She couldn't afford to run anymore. Nathan couldn't sleep. The cryptic message from Emily gnawed at him, and her lack of response only fueled his frustration. He paced the length of his penthouse apartment, his thoughts bouncing between disbelief and anger. Why now, he wondered. If she needed help, why hadn't she reached out earlier? Why had she left at all? The city lights cast a faint glow across the room as Nathan leaned against the glass wall overlooking Manhattan. His reflection stared back at him, weary and unsatisfied, despite his towering success. He picked up his phone again, scrolling through his messages. "Emily, I'm serious. If you need help, I'll do what I can, but I need answers." He hit send and waited. Seconds ticked into minutes, and just as he was about to give up, his phone lit up with a reply. Emily's hands trembled as she typed back. "Nathan, I'm sorry. The message wasn't meant for you. It was a mistake." She hit send, hoping he would let it go, but Nathan was already replying. "Mistake or not, it's done. You mentioned baby formula. Do you have a child?" Her heart skipped a beat. She knew this was coming, but she wasn't prepared to answer. Biting her lip, she stared at the question. She could lie, but what good would that do? He deserved the truth, or at least part of it. "Yes, I do." The simplicity of her response seemed to hang in the air. Nathan's reply came almost instantly. "And you didn't think to tell me?" She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words. She had known this moment would come, but she hadn't expected it to feel so raw. "It's complicated, Nathan. Nathan's mind raced as he stared at her response. Complicated? That wasn't good enough. He wasn't the kind of man who left things unresolved, and this situation was no exception. I want to see you tomorrow, noon, my office. It wasn't a question, and he didn't expect her to argue. But when Emily's reply came, it wasn't what he expected. I can't. For a moment he was stunned. He wasn't used to hearing no, especially from her. Why not? Because my life isn't like yours anymore, Nathan. I'm not the same person I was. Her words stung more than he cared to admit. He typed back quickly, his frustration bubbling to the surface. Neither am I, Emily, but we need to talk. This time, there was no reply. The next day, Nathan sat in his office, unable to focus on anything but the unanswered questions swirling in his head. His assistant knocked lightly, interrupting his thoughts. "Mr. Carter, you have a visitor," she said. He frowned. "I'm not expecting anyone." She said her name is Emily. Nathan's heart skipped a beat. Rising from his chair, he adjusted his tie and turned to face the door. When Emily walked in, he barely recognized her. She looked tired but radiant, her eyes filled with a mix of defiance and vulnerability. "Emily," he said, his voice softer than he intended. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she took a deep breath and met his gaze. "I didn't want to come, but I owe you an explanation," she said. Nathan gestured to the chair across from his desk, but Emily remained standing. "I don't have much time," she said, glancing nervously at the clock, "but there's something you need to know." Nathan's chest tightened as he waited for her to speak. "You're a father, Nathan," she said, her voice trembling. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Nathan stared at her, his mind struggling to process her words. "What did you say?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Emily's eyes filled with tears as she repeated, "You have a son. His name is Liam, and he's 8 months old." Nathan's reaction remains uncertain as the weight of Emily's revelation threatens to shatter the careful life he has built. Nathan sat frozen in his office chair, staring at Emily as her words echoed in his mind. "You have a son." He blinked, struggling to form a coherent thought. "Liam," he repeated softly, the name feeling foreign and yet strangely significant on his tongue. His gaze moved to Emily, searching her face for any sign that this might be some elaborate misunderstanding. But the way her eyes welled with tears, the faint quiver in her lips, this wasn't a lie. He leaned forward, gripping the edge of his desk. "You mean to tell me," he said slowly, his voice low, "that I've had a son for 8 months, and you decided I didn't deserve to know?" Emily flinched at his words, her composure cracking. "I didn't decide that," she shot back, her voice trembling with emotion. I thought it was the right thing to do. For him. For you." Nathan pushed himself to his feet, his towering frame radiating a mix of anger and disbelief. "The right thing?" he repeated, pacing behind his desk. "How could hiding my own child from me possibly be the right thing?" Emily's heart ached at his reaction, but she had prepared for this. She clasped her hands tightly in front of her, as though holding herself together. "You were consumed by work, Nathan," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "You barely had time for me. How was I supposed to believe you'd have time for a baby?" He stopped pacing, turning to face her with a sharp glare. "You don't get to make that decision for me, Emily. I would have been there. I would have—" He broke off, running a hand through his dark hair. "You don't know that," she interrupted, her voice rising. "You say you would have been there, but I didn't see that version of you. The Nathan I left behind was married to his company, not to me." The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling between them like an uninvited guest. Nathan took a deep breath, trying to rein in the emotions threatening to overwhelm him. He'd spent years building walls around his heart, and now they were crumbling in the face of a truth he hadn't been prepared to hear. "I deserve to meet him," he said finally, his voice steadier. Emily nodded, though her expression was conflicted. "I know," she admitted. "That's why I'm here. But I need you to understand something, Nathan. Liam is my entire world. I've built a life for him, a small one but a happy one. I can't let you come in and disrupt that unless you're absolutely certain you're ready to be a part of his life." Her words stung, but Nathan couldn't deny their truth. "I am ready," he said firmly, "but I need time to process this. You've had months to adjust to being a parent, Emily. You can't expect me to catch up in a single conversation." She sighed, her posture softening. "I don't expect that," she said, "but I do expect you to think about what's best for Liam, not just what's best for you." That night, Nathan sat alone in his penthouse apartment, nursing a glass of whiskey as he stared out at the city skyline. His mind replayed every moment of his conversation with Emily, dissecting her words, her expressions, the guilt and fear that lingered in her eyes. A son. He had a son. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. Nathan prided himself on his ability to solve problems, to take control of chaotic situations and turn them to his advantage. But this was different. This wasn't a hostile takeover or a boardroom negotiation. This was his life, and Liam's life, hanging in the balance. As the hours ticked by, Nathan made a decision. He wasn't going to let his past mistakes define his future. He'd fight for a place in Liam's life, no matter how much it hurt to confront the ways he'd failed Emily. The next day, Nathan called Emily. "I want to meet him," he said without preamble. Emily hesitated on the other end of the line. "Are you sure?" "Yes," he said firmly. "I want to know my son." There was a long pause before she spoke again. "Okay, tomorrow, noon. There's a park near my apartment. We can meet there." Nathan agreed, though the thought of meeting Liam in such a casual setting made his stomach churn with nerves. He spent the rest of the day preparing, reading articles about parenting, calling his assistant to clear his schedule, and even stopping by a toy store to pick out a gift. The park was quiet the next day, the sounds of children laughing and birds chirping filling the air. Nathan spotted Emily sitting on a bench under a large oak tree, a stroller parked beside her. She looked up as he approached, her expression a mix of apprehension and determination. Nathan's heart raced as he stopped in front of her. His gaze shifted to the stroller, where a tiny boy with soft blonde curls and bright blue eyes was gnawing on a teething ring. "Liam." "Hi," Nathan said awkwardly, his voice catching in his throat. Emily smiled faintly. "Hi." She gestured toward the stroller. "Nathan, this is Liam. Liam, this is—" She hesitated, then said, "This is your daddy." Nathan's breath hitched as he crouched down to Liam's level. The baby looked up at him with curious eyes, his chubby hands reaching out to grab the shiny watch on Nathan's wrist. "Hey there, little guy," Nathan said softly, a lump forming in his throat. Liam giggled, his laugh like music to Nathan's ears. In that moment, all of his doubts and fears melted away. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Nathan and Emily talked as Liam played on a blanket spread out on the grass. Emily told him about Liam's favorite foods, his bedtime routines, and the way he loved to babble at the family dog. Nathan listened intently, soaking up every detail. But as the conversation continued, he couldn't shake the feeling that Emily was holding something back. "Emily," he said cautiously, "why did you really leave?" She stiffened, her gaze dropping to her hands. "I told you," she said. "I didn't think you had room in your life for us." Nathan frowned. "That's part of it, but it's not the whole truth, is it?" Emily's shoulders sagged as she let out a weary sigh. "No," she admitted. "It's not. The truth is, I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you about the baby without feeling like I was ruining your life, and I didn't want Liam to grow up feeling like he was a burden." Nathan's chest tightened at her words. "You thought I'd see him that way?" "I didn't know what to think," she said, her voice breaking. "You were so focused on your work, Nathan. I didn't want to force you into something you weren't ready for." As the sun began to set, Nathan walked Emily and Liam back to their apartment. When they reached the door, he hesitated. "Emily," he said, his voice serious, "I don't want to be just a visitor in his life. I want to be his father, and I want to fix things between us, if you'll let me." She looked at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "That's a big step, Nathan. Are you sure you're ready for it?" He nodded, his expression resolute. "I've never been more sure of anything." Emily smiled faintly, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "We'll see," she said. As Nathan walked away, he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, he knew exactly what he wanted, and he wasn't going to let anything stand in his way. The bond between Nathan and Liam begins to grow, but Emily's lingering fears and a new complication threatened to derail their fragile reunion. Nathan couldn't shake the feeling of exhilaration as he left Emily's apartment. For the first time in years, something beyond quarterly earnings reports and market trends mattered to him. He had a son, a beautiful, curious boy, who had giggled at his watch and clung to his finger like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. But that joy was tempered by a gnawing unease. Emily's words haunted him. "I was scared. There was something more she wasn't telling him, something she was shielding Liam from." The next day, Nathan called his assistant, Margaret, a no-nonsense woman who had worked with him for over a decade. "Margaret, I need you to find out everything you can about Emily." "Discreetly," he said, keeping his tone neutral. Margaret hesitated. "Sir, are you sure that's wise? If she finds out—" "She won't," he interrupted. "This isn't about prying, it's about understanding. Just do it." He hung up, guilt nibbling at the edges of his resolve. But he justified it to himself. If Emily wasn't going to tell him the full story, he had no choice but to uncover it on his own. That evening, Nathan sat in his penthouse, staring at the framed photo of his parents on the mantelpiece. They had been his rock, their love for each other a constant source of strength in his life. He'd always dreamed of giving his own child that same stability, but now he wondered if it was too late. His thoughts were interrupted by the buzz of his phone. It was Margaret. "I've got some information," she said, her voice professional but cautious. "Emily has been working as a freelance graphic designer. It's not much, but she's managing to make ends meet. She rents a small apartment in a modest neighborhood, and there haven't been any red flags except—" Nathan's heart rate quickened. "Except what?" "She's been making regular visits to a lawyer's office," Margaret said. "I couldn't find much, but it seems related to custody arrangements." Custody. The word hit Nathan like a punch to the gut. "Thank you, Margaret," he said, his voice tight. "That'll be all." He hung up and leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. Was Emily planning to keep him at arm's length? Did she think he wasn't fit to be a father? The next day, Nathan called Emily. "I need to see you," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Emily hesitated. "Nathan, we just—" "Please," he interrupted, his voice softening. "It's important." After a long pause, she relented. "Fine. The park again. Noon." When Nathan arrived, Emily was already there, sitting on a bench with Liam in her lap. The baby squealed with delight when he saw Nathan, his chubby arms reaching out. Nathan's heart swelled as he scooped Liam into his arms, but his focus quickly shifted to Emily. "I heard you've been talking to a lawyer," he said, keeping his voice steady. Emily stiffened. "You've been spying on me?" "No," he said quickly. "I just needed to understand why you left, why you didn't tell me about Liam. And now, I need to know if you're planning to keep him from me." Her expression softened, though her eyes were wary. "Nathan, I'm not trying to take Liam away from you. The lawyer is just a precaution. I didn't know how you'd react when you found out about him. I needed to be prepared for anything." Nathan exhaled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "I get that," he said. "But Emily, I'm not the man I was a year ago. I want to be part of his life, part of both your lives. But you have to trust me." She looked at him, her gaze searching. "Trust takes time," she said finally. Over the next few weeks, Nathan threw himself into getting to know Liam. He started visiting Emily's apartment regularly, bringing toys and books, and spending hours playing with his son. He learned Liam's favorite songs, his little quirks, and the way his eyes lit up when he saw his favorite stuffed elephant. But despite the progress he was making with Liam, things with Emily remained strained. She was polite but guarded, her walls firmly in place. One evening, as Nathan was leaving, he decided to confront her. "Emily," he said, turning to face her, "I know you're still holding something back. If we're going to co-parent, I need you to be honest with me." She looked away, her hands twisting nervously. "It's not that simple," she said. "Then make it simple," he insisted. "What are you so afraid of?" Her eyes filled with tears as she finally met his gaze. "I'm afraid of losing him," she admitted. "I'm afraid that once you realize how amazing he is, you'll take him away from me." Nathan was stunned. "Emily, I would never do that," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "I'm not trying to replace you. I just want to be his father." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I want to believe that," she said. "But after everything that happened between us, it's hard to trust." The next morning, Nathan was sitting in his office when his assistant, Margaret, burst in. "Sir, I thought you should see this," she said, placing a folder on his desk. Nathan opened it and felt his stomach drop. Inside were photos of Emily with another man, a tall, rugged-looking guy with a friendly smile. In one of the photos, he was holding Liam. "What is this?" Nathan demanded, his voice icy. Margaret hesitated. "The man's name is Jack Sullivan. He's a friend of Emily's. At least, that's what it seems. But he spends a lot of time with her and Liam." Nathan's jaw tightened as jealousy flared in his chest. Was this why Emily had been so hesitant to let him in? Was she already moving on? That evening, Nathan confronted Emily. "Who's Jack?" he asked bluntly. Emily froze, her eyes widening. "How do you know about Jack?" "It doesn't matter how I know," he said. "I want to know who he is and what he means to you and Liam." She sighed, her shoulders slumping. "Jack is a friend. He's been there for me since Liam was born. He helped me when I had no one else to turn to." Nathan's chest tightened. "And now?" Emily hesitated. "He's important to us," she said carefully. The words stung, but Nathan refused to let his emotions cloud his judgment. "I'm not here to compete with him, Emily," he said. "But I need to know where I stand. I need to know if there's a future for us, for all of us." She looked at him, her expression conflicted. "Nathan, I don't know," she admitted. "I need time to figure things out." Over the next few weeks, tensions between Nathan and Emily escalated. Jack's presence became a source of friction, and Nathan's insecurities began to surface. One evening, after a particularly heated argument, Emily broke down. "Nathan, this isn't about Jack," she said, tears streaming down her face. "This is about me. I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if I can trust us." Nathan felt like the wind had been knocked out of him. "Emily, I'm trying," he said. "I'm doing everything I can to prove to you that I've changed. What else do you need from me?" "I need to know that you're not just doing this out of guilt," she said. "I need to know that you're here because you want to be, not because you feel like you have to be." Her words hit him like a freight train. For the first time, Nathan realized that his own fears and insecurities were standing in the way of their reconciliation. That night, as he sat alone in his apartment, Nathan made a decision. He wasn't going to let his doubts dictate his actions. He was going to fight for his family, no matter what it took. Just as Nathan resolves to win back Emily's trust, a shocking revelation threatens to undo all the progress they've made. Nathan arrived at Emily's apartment building earlier than usual, his mind racing. He had spent the night replaying her words. "I need to know that you're here because you want to be, not because you feel like you have to be." He knew she was right. His initial reaction to discovering Liam had been driven by shock and anger, followed by an overwhelming sense of responsibility. But over the past few weeks, that sense of obligation had given way to something deeper. Every moment he spent with Liam brought a joy he hadn't thought possible. And as he watched Emily care for their son with such grace and determination, he realized that his feelings for her had never truly faded. But Nathan also knew he couldn't rush her. If he wanted to rebuild their trust, he needed to give her the time and space to see that his intentions were genuine. As he approached the door, he heard laughter from inside, a deep, familiar laugh that made his stomach drop. His hand froze mid-knock as he strained to listen. It was Jack. Nathan clenched his fists, a surge of jealousy threatening to boil over. But before he could act, the door swung open, and Emily stood there, her expression startled. "Nathan," she said, her voice laced with surprise, "I wasn't expecting you so early." He forced a smile, though his jaw remained tight. "I thought I'd come by and spend some extra time with Liam," he said, his tone carefully neutral. Emily hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. "Jack's here," she said quietly. "He's just leaving." As if on cue, Jack appeared in the doorway, holding Liam, who was giggling and grabbing at the man's shirt. Jack's easy smile faltered when he saw Nathan, but he quickly recovered. "Nathan," Jack said, nodding politely. "Jack," Nathan replied, his voice cold. He stepped inside, his gaze fixed on Liam. "I'll take him now." Jack handed Liam over without protest, though the tension between the two men was palpable. "I'll see you later, Emily," Jack said, giving her a warm smile before heading out the door. As soon as he was gone, Nathan turned to Emily, his frustration boiling over. "What is he still doing here?" he demanded. Emily sighed, rubbing her temples. "Nathan, this isn't a competition. Jack is my friend, and he's been there for me when I needed someone. You can't expect me to just cut him out of our lives." Nathan's jaw tightened. "I'm not asking you to cut him out," he said, "but I need to know where I stand, Emily. Am I just someone you tolerate because I'm Liam's father, or do you see a future for us?" Her eyes softened, but her expression remained guarded. "Nathan, I don't know," she admitted. "I'm still trying to figure out if we can rebuild what we had or if it's even worth trying." Nathan left the apartment that evening, feeling more uncertain than ever. He wanted to believe that he and Emily could find their way back to each other, but the shadow of Jack's presence and Emily's lingering doubts made him question everything. The next day, Nathan received an unexpected call from Margaret. "Sir, I've found something you might want to see," she said. "What is it?" Nathan asked, his tone wary. "It's about Jack Sullivan," Margaret said. "I did some digging, and it turns out he has a criminal record. Nothing recent, but he was arrested a few years ago for fraud." Nathan's grip on the phone tightened. "Fraud?" "Yes," Margaret confirmed. "He served time, but it seems he's turned his life around since then. Still, I thought you should know." Nathan's mind raced. Could this be the reason Emily was so hesitant to trust him? Was Jack manipulating her somehow? That evening, Nathan confronted Emily again. "I need to talk to you about Jack," he said, his tone serious. Emily's eyes narrowed. "What about him?" "I know about his past," Nathan said. "The fraud charges, the prison time. Did you know?" Emily's expression darkened. "Yes, I know," she said. "And it doesn't change anything. Jack made mistakes, but he's a good person, Nathan. He's been more of a father to Liam than you've been so far." The word stung, but Nathan refused to back down. "Emily, I'm not saying people can't change, but don't you think it's worth being cautious? What if he hasn't changed as much as you think?" Emily shook her head, her frustration evident. "Nathan, this is exactly why I was afraid to tell you about Liam. You swoop in, thinking you can control everything, but this isn't your world. It's mine. And Jack has been nothing but kind and supportive." Nathan took a step back, her words hitting him like a punch to the gut. "I'm not trying to control anything, Emily," he said, his voice quieter now. "I just want to protect Liam. And you. Is that so wrong?" Emily's expression softened slightly, but her walls remained up. "I don't need you to protect me, Nathan," she said. "I need you to prove that you're here for the right reasons. Until then, I can't make any promises." Over the next few weeks, Nathan focused on building a genuine relationship with Liam. He learned how to change diapers, prepared bottles, and even mastered the art of bedtime stories. Slowly but surely, he felt himself becoming a real father. Emily began to notice the changes in him, though she remained cautious. She saw the way Liam's face lit up when Nathan walked into the room, the way he reached for him with chubby hands. It was clear that Nathan's presence was having a positive impact on their son. One evening, as Nathan was tucking Liam into bed, Emily stood in the doorway, watching silently. For the first time in months, she felt a glimmer of hope that they might be able to navigate this complicated situation together. But just as things seemed to be improving, another twist threatened to shatter their fragile progress. Emily received a call late one night from Jack. His voice was panicked and he sounded desperate. "Emily, I need your help," he said. "I got involved in something, and I didn't mean to, but it's bad. I don't know what to do." Emily's heart sank. "Jack, what are you talking about?" "I can't explain right now," he said, "but I need you to meet me. Please, Emily, you're the only person I can trust." Emily hesitated, torn between loyalty to a friend and the safety of her son. "Okay," she said finally, "but this is the last time, Jack. I can't keep doing this." When Nathan arrived the next morning, he found Emily pacing the living room, her face pale and her eyes red from lack of sleep. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. Emily hesitated, then said, "Jack called me last night. He's in trouble." Nathan's jaw tightened. "What kind of trouble?" "I don't know," she admitted. "He wouldn't tell me. But I went to meet him and he seemed scared. I think he's gotten involved with the wrong people." Nathan's frustration boiled over. "Emily, this is exactly what I was afraid of. You're putting yourself and Liam at risk because of him." "I didn't have a choice," she said, her voice trembling. "He needed my help." Nathan took a deep breath, trying to steady his emotions. "Emily, I get that you care about him, but you have to think about Liam. He's your priority now." Her eyes filled with tears as she nodded. "I know," she said quietly. That evening, Emily made the difficult decision to cut ties with Jack. She called him, explaining that she couldn't continue to put Liam at risk. "I'm sorry, Jack," she said, "but I have to put my son first." Jack was silent for a long moment before he sighed. "I understand," he said. "Take care of yourself, Emily." In the weeks that followed, Emily and Nathan began to rebuild their relationship. The trust between them grew slowly, nurtured by their shared love for Liam. One evening, as they sat on the couch watching Liam play with his toys, Nathan turned to Emily. "Emily," he said softly, taking her hand in his, "I know I've made mistakes, but I love you, and I love Liam. I want us to be a family again." Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at him, her heart swelling with a mix of fear and hope. "Nathan, "I want that too," she said, "but we have to take it one step at a time." He nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "One step at a time," he agreed. As they sat together watching their son's laughter fill the room, Emily felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. For the first time, she believed that they might have a future, a real future, built on trust, love, and the unbreakable bond they shared with Liam. And for Nathan, the realization that he had found not just success, but true happiness, filled him with a sense of purpose he had never known. They had faced their fears, their doubts, and their mistakes, and in the end they had found their way back to each other.